My mother spent 3 years quietly erasing my 9-year-old daughter from our family. But I didn't realize it until Christmas night, when she looked my child in the eye and said the table was only for real grandchildren. Less than 2 hours later, my daughter was sitting alone in a freezing car without a coat. A hidden camera had captured everything, and the woman who built an entire career teaching families about love was about to lose the life she spent years creating. My name is Vivian Mercer, and what I discovered afterward was far worse than one cruel night. Chapter 1. The Christmas Table, with one missing name. My name is Vivian Mercer, and for 3 years I thought I was protecting my daughter by keeping the peace. I was 37 years old that December, living in Fairfield County, Connecticut, in a narrow white house with old maple trees in the backyard, and a kitchen table that still had one chair too many. My daughter, Hazel, was 9. She had her father's quiet eyes, his careful smile, and the same habit of apologizing before anyone accused her of anything. I worked from home as a senior brand copywriter, writing warm, polished words for family companies that wanted to sound honest. I knew how brands were built. I knew how language could soften a lie until people mistook it for kindness. I knew how a photograph could hide what stood just outside the frame. I knew all of that for a living, and still, I did not see what my own mother was doing to my child. My husband, Owen Mercer, died at the end of 2021 on a wet road outside Stamford, driving back from a construction site he had stayed late to inspect. The police officer who came to my door had kind eyes and a voice that broke before mine did. Hazel was 6 then. She slept through the knock, through the phone calls, through the first hour of the world becoming something neither of us had chosen. After Owen died, I became very good at surviving quietly. I packed Hazel's lunch. I paid bills. I smiled at school pickup. I cried in the laundry room because the dryer was loud enough to cover it. I told myself that if I could not give Hazel her father back, I could at least give her family. That was why I kept going back to my mother. Eleanor Whitmore was 64. Elegant in the way women become when they learn which angles photograph best. Online, she was the face of Grace and Hearth Living, a Christian family brand with 87,000 Instagram followers, a weekly podcast called Grace Around the Table, and a newsletter full of prayers, recipes, and soft focus pictures of grandchildren stirring cookie dough. She had brand partnerships with Covenant Home Collective and Everlight Devotionals. She wrote about unconditional love in captions long enough to make strangers cry. At church, people hugged her with both arms. In grocery stores, women stopped her near the produce section and told her she had helped them become better mothers. But Owen never trusted her. He used to stand in our kitchen after family dinners, loosening his tie with one hand, and say, "Your mother loves an audience more than she loves the truth." I always told him that was too harsh. He would look at me then, not angry, just sad, and say, "Viv, one day she is going to turn someone into scenery, and you are going to be the last person willing to admit it." After he died, I decided not to remember that sentence. I remembered other things instead. My mother bringing casseroles. My mother sitting in the front pew at the funeral. My mother posting a picture of a candle and writing that grief was holy when family gathered close. I told myself she was trying. At first, Hazel appeared in the family posts. Not often, but enough. A picture by the Christmas tree, a blurry shot of her holding a mixing spoon, a birthday mention with a white heart emoji. Then, slowly, she began to disappear. In 2022, my mother said the matching Christmas pajamas had sold out in Hazel's size. In 2023, she said Hazel was probably too old for the cousin pajama photo anyway. In 2024, she sent me the affiliate link and wrote, "You can grab hers if she wants one, sweetheart." I do not want to choose wrong. There were no pictures of Hazel on my parents' refrigerator anymore. No school photo tucked beside Madison's soccer portrait. No drawing held up by a magnet. No mention of her in the Grace and Hearth newsletter when my mother wrote about the blessings of watching grandchildren grow. Madison, Avery, and Logan were everywhere. My sister Vanessa's children were in cookie reels, prayer circles, pumpkin patch posts, and back-to-school carousels. Hazel was not, I noticed. Then I explained it away. Maybe Mom was protecting Hazel's privacy. Maybe grief made things awkward. Maybe I was being sensitive because Owen was gone, and every empty space looked like rejection. Then one night in November 2024, Hazel was lying beside me in bed, with a chapter book open on her chest. She had been quiet for a long time. I thought she had fallen asleep until she turned her face toward the ceiling and asked, "Mom, why am I never in Grandma's pictures?" I felt the question land somewhere deep. I said something weak. Something about Grandma being bad with her phone. Something about grown-ups not always thinking clearly. Hazel nodded like she was trying to make the answer fit. Then she whispered, "Maybe she forgets me." She turned toward the wall after that. She did not cry. That was worse. Crying would have meant she still expected comfort. Instead, she sounded like a child filing herself away under things people might overlook. I lay awake for 2 hours after she fell asleep. I drafted a message to my mother. Then another. Then a third. I deleted all of them before morning. On Thanksgiving, my sister-in-law Rachel came over with a pumpkin pie, and the kind of face people wear when they have been carrying a truth too long. Rachel was 34, a paralegal, married to my brother Nathan. She was not dramatic. She did not waste words. While Hazel was in the living room watching a movie, Rachel took my hand across the kitchen island and lowered her voice. "Please do not leave Hazel there alone," she said. I frowned. "At Mom's?" Rachel glanced toward the doorway. "At your mother's. If something happens and I have to act, trust me first." I almost asked what she meant. I should have. Instead, I thanked her, told her I would be careful, and let myself believe she was overreacting. Then, 2 weeks before Christmas, my mother began trying. That was how I thought of it then. She FaceTimed Hazel on a Tuesday evening and asked about school. She mailed a tin of molasses cookies with a handwritten card. She texted me a picture of the dining room table and wrote that this Christmas needed to feel like a new beginning. She said she wanted time with Hazel, real time, grandmother time. She said I had been carrying too much alone. "Drop her off at 4, sweetheart," she wrote. "I will feed her. She can play with her cousins. You do not need to worry. I have her." I stared at that message for a long time. I wanted to believe it. Hazel wanted to believe it more. On Christmas afternoon, she came out of her bedroom wearing the red velvet dress Owen had bought too big the year before he died. It finally fit. She held the skirt out with both hands and spun once in the hallway. "Do you think Grandma will like it?" I told her yes. She smiled, then ran back to her room and came out with a small brown recipe journal pressed against her chest. She had spent weeks filling the first pages with foods she thought Eleanor liked. Lemon pound cake, chicken pot pie, cinnamon rolls. Things Grandma might want to make with me someday, she had written across the inside cover in careful pencil. I drove her to my mother's house just before dusk. The temperature had dropped to 19 degrees. The windows of the Colonial glowed gold. Wreaths hung on every window. The porch looked like something my mother would post, with a caption about holy hospitality. Hazel climbed out holding the journal with both hands. My mother opened the door, wearing a cream cardigan and a red Christmas apron. Her smile appeared before the rest of her did. "There is my girl," she said, bright enough for the street to hear. She hugged Hazel with hands that barely touched her back. I watched from the driveway and told myself not to ruin it with suspicion. Hazel turned once before stepping inside. She waved at me. Small, hopeful, brave. I waved back. Then the door closed. I drove away believing my mother was trying to change. What I did not know was that 4 minutes after that door shut, Eleanor Whitmore began arranging a Christmas dinner where every chair had a place. Every child had a name, and my daughter had already been counted out. Chapter 2, the granddaughter. Woo didn't count. Hazel told me pieces of that night later, not all at once, because children do not always hand you the wound in one clean piece. They give it to you in fragments, a sentence while brushing their teeth, a detail in the back seat, a question 2 weeks later while tying a shoe, but Rachel told me the order of it. when Hazel stepped into my mother's living room. The tree was already lit, tall and silvered, and arranged in the corner, where the light from the front window made every ornament glow. My sister Vanessa's children were on the rug beneath it. Madison, 10, was sorting colored pencils by shade. Avery, 7, was lying on her stomach with a picture book. Logan, 5, was driving a wooden train along the baseboard and making soft engine noises to himself. My father, Harold Whitmore, sat near the fireplace with a glass of red wine balanced on his knee. He had the same expression he wore through most family gatherings: calm, distant, and practiced enough to pass for kindness if you did not look too closely. Vanessa stood by the mantel in a cream sweater, laughing at something her husband Eric had said. She was younger than me by 4 years, polished in a way that always made effort look accidental. In our family, Vanessa had never entered a room uncertain of her place in it. The room always moved to make space for her. Hazel walked in, holding the brown recipe journal against her chest. Rachel told me she watched my daughter pause near the tree and look up at the mantel. There were 6 stockings hanging there. 5 had names stitched across the cuffs in gold thread: Madison, Avery, Logan. 2 more for Vanessa's stepdaughters, who were coming the next day. The 6th stocking was red and green plaid with no name on it. Decorative, my mother would say later, as if decoration could explain absence. Hazel counted them once. Then again, Madison noticed. She was not cruel. She was 10, and 10-year-olds sometimes tell the truth before adults teach them how to swallow it. "Where is yours?" she asked. Hazel looked down at the journal in her hands and did not answer. By then, Declan Price had arrived with his camera bag. Declan was a cousin from my father's side, 28, a freelance videographer from Pittsburgh, trying to build a portfolio that looked more expensive than his bank account. My mother had invited him for 4 days and promised him a guest room, meals, and exposure through Grace and Hearth Living if he filmed enough pretty holiday footage for her New Year campaign. He did not know our family rules. That mattered later. He set up a camera on the buffet between the dining room and the living room, angled wide enough to capture the tree, the gift pile, and the polished stretch of dining table my mother had been styling since noon. White linen, green napkins, gold chargers, a centerpiece of cedar branches and battery candles. Everything designed to say warmth. Everything arranged so no one would ask who had been left cold. Rachel was seated near the far end of the room, her black clutch in her lap. She saw Hazel see the stockings. She saw my mother take the recipe journal from Hazel with 2 fingers, glance at the cover, and place it on the sideboard without opening it. Rachel told me later. That was the moment she unzipped her clutch and pressed record on her phone. Not because she wanted a scandal, because she had been waiting 18 months for my mother to finally say out loud what she had been doing in pieces. Dinner was called at 6:15. My mother had set the main table for the photograph she wanted after dessert. Adults, grandchildren, symmetry, candles, plates lined like a magazine spread. There were enough chairs in the house. There were folding chairs in the garage. There was even a bench in the hallway. There was no place for Sarzil. Declan noticed first. He counted people, then placed cards, then chairs. Rachel said his face changed. "Aunt Eleanor," he said quietly, "I think we are short 1 seat." My mother did not even look startled. She smiled as she lifted a water pitcher. "Oh, Hazel can sit at the coffee table tonight. She is little. She will be more comfortable there, and I do not want the linens disturbed before we take pictures." Hazel was 9. She knew what a lie sounded like when it was wrapped in a soft voice. Rachel shifted in her chair, ready to stand. But my father looked toward her, one small warning glance. Not angry, not dramatic, just enough. A lifetime of family training in one look. Do not make a scene, not here, not now. So Rachel stayed seated, but her phone kept recording. Hazel sat at the coffee table, with a plate balanced carefully on her knees. Ham, green beans, a roll she tore into tiny pieces but barely ate. She was close enough to hear the laughter from the dining table, close enough to smell the cinnamon butter, close enough to understand that she had not been forgotten. She had been placed. No one asked if she wanted more. No one asked what Santa brought her. No one asked about school. Logan finally looked over his shoulder and said, "Why doesn't Hazel sit with us?" Vanessa laughed too brightly and asked him if he wanted more cranberry sauce. My father stared into his wine. Rachel told me. She looked at the empty space beside Eric, then at my daughter sitting alone under the glow of the Christmas tree, and had to press her nails into her palm to keep from standing up too soon. She was afraid my mother would turn Hazel into the reason the night became ugly. She was afraid Hazel would watch adults fight over whether she deserved a chair. After dinner, my mother clapped her hands once and announced presents from Grandma. Hazel set the recipe journal on the side table near my mother's chair. She smoothed the skirt of her red dress. She waited. 5 gold boxes sat under the tree, 5 ivory ribbons, 5 handwritten tags. Madison opened a bracelet kit. Avery opened a dollhouse set. Logan opened a wooden train station that made him gasp. The 2 boxes for Vanessa's stepdaughters were set aside for tomorrow. Names facing up. Hazel sat on the rug with her hands folded, still waiting. My mother stood. She brushed invisible lint from the front of her red apron. Declan's camera was still rolling from the buffet. Rachel's phone was recording inside her clutch. Then Eleanor Whitmore turned to my daughter and used the voice that had made thousands of women online call her a blessing. "Sweetheart, this table is only for real grandchildren. You do not belong here. Why don't you go wait in the car until your mother comes?" Rachel said the silence after that was not empty. It was full of people choosing themselves. Hazel did not cry. That was what undid me later. She stood the way she had been taught to stand in places where love had conditions. Quietly, carefully, without knocking anything over. She walked toward the front closet where her coat hung. My mother called after her, light as a bell. "Leave the coat, honey. I will wash it tonight." It picked up some dust. Hazel stopped. Her hand was already on the sleeve. Then she let go. Rachel stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. My mother's eyes snapped toward her. My father shifted near the doorway. Rachel lifted her phone to her ear and said she had to take a call. Her voice sounded calm, but she told me later her hands were shaking. She walked toward the laundry room instead of the porch, grabbed the thick plaid throw my mother kept for photographs, filled a travel mug with hot chocolate from the kitchen, and went outside through the side door. Hazel was already in my mother's car, curled in the passenger seat, knees to her chest. Rachel opened the door. Hazel whispered, "Am I in trouble?" Rachel wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and said, "No, honey, not with me." She checked Hazel's hands. Cold, too cold. She gave her the mug and told her to sip slowly. Then Rachel looked back at the house and made the choice she would spend months defending. She did not drag Hazel inside and start a fight in front of her. She knew my mother. She knew Eleanor would turn the scene into Hazel being dramatic, Hazel ruining Christmas, Hazel needing to calm down. Rachel decided to keep Hazel warm, keep the recording safe, and get me there. She texted me 3 times. "Vivian, call me. Come get Hazel now. Do not let Eleanor explain first." I did not see the messages. I was driving back from dropping off a last-minute client packet, my phone tucked in my bag, set to silent because I thought my daughter was safe. Every 15 minutes, Rachel slipped outside. She checked Hazel's fingers. She warmed the car for short stretches without moving it. She kept the blanket tight around her. She told Hazel stories about Nathan burning toast when they first got married. Anything to keep her awake, anything to keep her from believing she had been sent outside because she was bad. Hazel sat there for 1 hour and 46 minutes. At 19 degrees, when I pulled into the driveway, my mother opened the front door before I knocked. She held a small bag of sugar cookies, tied with ribbon. "Oh, honey," she said, smiling the smile from her sponsored posts. Hazel got a little overwhelmed. She has been waiting in the car. Some children just need air. I looked past her. The tree was lit. The table was still perfect. 5 open gifts lay near the rug. Hazel's brown recipe journal sat unopened on the sideboard. I did not ask my mother anything. I walked to the car and opened the passenger door. Hazel was wrapped in Rachel's blanket. Her lips were pale. Her hands trembled around the empty travel mug. She looked up at me like she had been waiting to be allowed to exist again. "Are we going home now?" she asked. I said yes. I carried her to my car, even though she was 9 and too big to be carried that way. My coat went around her. The heater went on full blast. Rachel stood near the side porch with tears in her eyes, and one hand pressed toward her mouth. I drove 6 minutes before Hazel spoke. "I was good, Mommy. I didn't make a mess." Something in me went still. At home, I checked her temperature. I photographed her hands because some part of me already understood that truth needed records. I called the pediatric nurse line and reached Dr. Allison Reed, who asked me careful questions about exposure, shivering, confusion, skin color, and time outside. Her voice changed when I told her the temperature and how long Hazel had been in the car. "Monitor her tonight," she said. "Warm fluids, dry clothes, no hot bath. And Vivian, document everything. If what you are describing is accurate, this may need to be reported as child endangerment." I wrote down every word. After I changed Hazel into fleece pajamas, she sat on the edge of her bed and looked at the floor. "Mom," she asked, "am I a real granddaughter?" I knelt in front of her and took both of her hands in mine. They were warmer now, but mine were shaking. "You are real," I said. "You are my daughter. You are Owen's daughter. You are not something anyone gets to erase." She nodded, but she did not smile. When she finally fell asleep, I went to the kitchen, opened my laptop, and created a new file. I named it Things I Should Have Seen Sooner. Chapter 3, The Girl Erased from the Family. By 6:12 the next morning, I was still sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the file name as if it could accuse me. Hazel was asleep in my bed. I had moved her there around 2 in the morning, after checking her forehead for the 5th time. She curled toward Owen's side without knowing it, one hand tucked beneath her cheek, her breathing finally steady. I watched her for almost 20 minutes before I went back to the kitchen. I did not open Instagram first. I called Dr. Allison Reed. Her office line sent me to the answering service, then to a nurse, then finally back to Dr. Reed herself, because she had left a note in Hazel's chart from the night before. Her voice was careful in the way doctors sound when they are trying not to frighten you before they understand all the facts. "How is she this morning?" "Warm, tired. She slept badly, but she is coherent. No confusion, no vomiting." "Good. Keep watching for lethargy, dizziness, or numbness in the fingers. And Vivian, I am documenting what you told me last night. Time outside, temperature, visible symptoms, and the circumstances." I closed my eyes. "Do I need to bring her in?" "Not unless symptoms worsen. But you need a record. You also need to call the Child Welfare Hotline and ask what the reporting threshold is. I am not saying this to punish anyone. I am saying it because a child was left outside in dangerous weather by an adult responsible for her." The words did not sound like family drama. They sounded official. They sounded real. After we hung up, I called the Connecticut Child Welfare Hotline. I gave my name, Hazel's age, the temperature, the length of time, the fact that she had been left in a parked car without her coat, and that another adult had been checking on her. The woman on the phone did not gasp. She did not soothe me. She asked questions. Exact ones. Who was responsible for the child? Was there immediate danger now? Was the child safe? Were there visible injuries? Had medical advice been sought? "She is safe now," I said. "Then write down this reference number," the woman replied. "Keep all medical notes, photographs, texts, and witness information. If you choose to make a formal report, or if your physician does, this number connects the call." I wrote it down with a hand that no longer felt like mine. Only then did I open my mother's Instagram. Grace and Hearth Living loaded in a wash of cream, gold, and soft filtered light. My mother smiling over mixing bowls. My mother reading scripture beside a window. My mother with Madison on her lap, Avery in matching pajamas, Logan covered in flour, Vanessa laughing with a baby spoon in her hand. Caption after caption about family tables, holy ordinary moments, the legacy of love. I started at the most recent post and scrolled backward. Christmas Eve. No Hazel. Thanksgiving. No Hazel, pumpkin patch. No Hazel. First day of school blessing. Madison, Avery, Logan. No Hazel Easter brunch. No Hazel winter cocoa bar. No Hazel. I opened a notebook and began counting. Not impressions. Not engagement. Not brand language. Children. Madison appeared 69 times. Avery appeared 53 times. Logan appeared 48 times. Vanessa appeared 41 times. Eric appeared 22 times. Harold appeared 19 times. Nathan appeared 7 times. Rachel appeared 4 times, usually at the edge of a frame, half included. Hazel appeared 0 times. I counted all the way back to December 2021, the month Owen died. 264 family photos in 36 months. Zell Hazel. I thought I had missed one. I wanted to have missed one, so I counted again. Still 0. My coffee went cold beside my hand. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of Hazel shifting in my room. I pressed the heel of my palm against my chest, because something there had started to hurt in a way grief had not prepared me for. My daughter had not been forgotten. Forgetting leaves gaps. This was clean. This was edited. I clicked my mother's profile and read the bio. Wife. Mother. Grandmother of 5. Building a home around grace, faith, and the table. Grandmother of 5. I stared at the phrase until the letters blurred. Then I remembered an old screenshot. In 2022, not long after Owen died, I had sent a link to one of my mother's posts to Owen's sister because she had asked how my family was doing. I opened my Photos app and searched Grace and Hearth. It took a few tries, but there it was. A screenshot from October 2022. The bio then read Grandmother of 6'6". I enlarged it until the number filled the screen. My throat tightened, but I did not cry. Not yet. Crying felt too small for what I was seeing. I emailed both screenshots to myself. I labeled them bio change evidence. Then I went to the closet where I kept old holiday cards, because I was sentimental in ways that had turned out to be useful. I pulled down the box marked Christmas. Cards slid across the floor. Gold foil. Green ribbon. Smiling faces. A decade of performed closeness in heavy cardstock. The 2023 Whitmore family card showed everyone standing in my parents' living room. My mother in the center. Harold beside her. Vanessa's family to the right. Nathan and Rachel to the left. I remembered that day because Hazel had been wearing a green dress and standing near the arm of the sofa holding a candy cane. She was not in the card. I found the original photo in an old text thread from Rachel. Same room. Same day, same arrangement. Hazel was there, small, still. Half turned toward the camera. In my mother's printed card, the left edge had been cropped just enough to remove her. I set the 2 images side by side on the table and felt something inside me go cold. Then I opened the Grace and Hearth newsletter archive. December 2023. The blessing of a full house. There it was again. The same photograph. Cropped, a paragraph beneath it read, "Every grandchild brings a different kind of light to the table." I laughed once. It came out wrong. Not because anything was funny. Because my mother had written a sentence about light directly under a photograph where she had cut my child out of the room. The second image was worse. It was from a church family calendar my mother had helped assemble for a fundraiser. I had never looked closely at the digital copy. In the January page, Eleanor was pictured at a cookie decorating table, with children gathered around her. I knew Hazel had been there because I had dropped her off that morning. She had come home with blue frosting on her sleeve. The posted version showed a strange blur near the right edge, a softened patch where a child's shoulder should have been. Hazel had not just been cropped, she had been removed. I whispered into the empty kitchen. "Mom, what did you do?" The doorbell rang at 9:08. Rachel stood on my porch with a USB drive in one hand and a small spiral notebook in the other. Her face looked like she had not slept either. I opened the door. She stepped inside and looked toward the hallway. "Is Hazel awake?" "Not yet." Rachel nodded. Her eyes filled, but she did not let tears fall. "I am sorry," she said. I shook my head. "Don't say that unless you mean for last night. I mean for 18 months. She set the notebook on my kitchen table. The first page was dated June 2023. Refrigerator photos counted. Hazel absent. Eleanor told Vanessa the grandchildren wall looked cleaner with fewer school pictures. The next page. September 2023. Grace and Hearth newsletter draft. Hazel removed from fall baking photo, October 2023. Eleanor said during podcast prep, "Our real family table has finally found its shape, December 2023. Christmas card cropped April 2024. No birthday mention for Hazel. Madison received full carousel post 3 days later. Thanksgiving 2024. Warning given to Vivian. She did not understand. I looked up. You wrote all this down?" Rachel wrapped both hands around her coffee mug, though I had not poured coffee yet. "I am a paralegal, Vivian. When something feels wrong, and nobody wants to say it out loud, I document." "Why didn't you tell me everything?" Her face folded a little. "Because every time I got close, you defended Eleanor before I could finish. You needed your mother to still be a grandmother. I understood that. I hated it, but I understood. That should have hurt. It did, but it was true." Rachel slid the USB toward me. The camera from Declan caught it. My phone caught it too. I have both files. I stared at the drive as if it were dangerous. "Have you posted anything?" "No, thank you. Do not thank me yet." I looked at her. Rachel's voice lowered. "Eleanor is already texting people. She is telling Vanessa that Hazel had an emotional episode. She is saying you have been fragile since Owen died. By tonight, the story will be that your daughter ruined Christmas and your grief made you overreact." A pulse beat hard in my ears. I opened my laptop again, but not to social media. I opened Owen's old email archive. I do not know why. Maybe because Rachel had said his name. Maybe because I needed to hear from someone who had seen my mother clearly before I did. There was a draft folder I had never opened. Mostly old work notes. Job site reminders. One unsent message addressed to me. The subject line read about your mom. My hand froze over the trackpad. I opened it. "Viv, I know you want peace. I love that about you. But your mother only loves people she can place inside the picture she wants to show the world. When they do not fit, she moves them. When they resist, she calls them difficult. I do not want Hazel growing up, thinking love is something she has to perform for." I stopped reading because the room had tilted. Owen had known. There was more. He wrote about an argument he had with Eleanor after she tried to stage a baking photo with the grandchildren and told Hazel to stand behind Madison because Madison had better camera energy. He wrote that he had confronted Eleanor in the hallway and that she smiled at him like he was being unreasonable. He ended with one line. "If anything happens to me, watch how she treats our daughter when I am no longer there to interrupt her." I covered my mouth with both hands. Rachel moved toward me, but I shook my head. I needed the pain to land. I needed it to stay. From the hallway, Hazel's bedroom door opened. She came into the kitchen in fleece pajamas, hair tangled, eyes puffy. She saw the recipe journal sitting on the counter where I had placed it after bringing it home from my mother's sideboard. Hazel picked it up, ran her thumb over the cover, then walked to the junk drawer and tucked it inside beneath takeout menus and batteries. "What are you doing, baby?" She did not look at me. "Maybe Grandma doesn't like homemade things." That was the sentence that decided it. Not the bio, not the photos, not the cropped card, not even Owen's email. That sentence. Rachel waited until Hazel went to brush her teeth. Then she picked up the USB drive and placed it in my palm. "If you do not want this posted, I will not post it," she said. "But if you let Eleanor tell the story first, Hazel will be blamed again." Chapter 4. The Empire Built on Faith and Lies. I looked at the USB in my hand and thought about all the quiet ways women in my family had been taught to protect the wrong person. Protect the holiday. Protect the table. Protect your mother. Protect the story. Hazel was in the bathroom, brushing her teeth with the door half open, humming under her breath because she hummed when she was trying not to think. I could hear the electric toothbrush and the small scrape of the step stool against tile. My daughter was 9 years old, and already she had learned that silence kept adults comfortable. I closed my fingers around the USB. "Post it," I said. Rachel stared at me for one long second. "Are you sure?" "No," I said. but I am sure I am done letting her get to the microphone first." Rachel nodded once. She did not smile. This was not victory. Not yet. She posted it from her own account just after noon, in a forum where people told the truth about family, because they had run out of safe rooms to say it in. She blurred Hazel's face. She cut the clip at 51 seconds, long enough to hear my mother's voice. Long enough to see my daughter stand. Long enough to see the room sit there and choose itself. The title was simple. My mother-in-law is a Christian family influencer. Last night, she told her 9-year-old granddaughter the table was only for real grandchildren and sent her outside in 19-degree weather. At first, nothing happened. Rachel sat at my kitchen table, refreshing the page. I made toast. Hazel did not eat. I folded laundry that had already been folded. I checked my phone and saw no texts from my mother, which frightened me more than a dozen angry ones would have. Then the numbers began to move. 100 views, 1,000, and 10,000. The comments came faster than I could read them. Where were the adults? That poor child. That woman preaches family? Why did nobody stand up? Covenant Home Collective needs to see this. Someone found Grace and Hearth Living within the hour. Someone tagged Covenant Home Collective. Someone tagged Everlight Devotionals. Someone found clips of my mother saying every child deserves a seat at the table, and placed them beside the video of Hazel being told to go wait in a car. By 2:30, Grace and Hearth Living's latest Instagram post had more comments than likes. By 3, my sister Vanessa called. I let it ring. She called again. Rachel looked at the phone and said, "You do not owe her panic." I answered anyway. Vanessa did not say hello. "What did you do?" I looked toward the hallway. Hazel was in my bedroom watching cartoons under my quilt, warm, safe, and still too quiet. "I did not do anything," I said. "Do not play innocent." Rachel posted that video. "Do you have any idea what people are saying about Mom?" "Yes. She is being destroyed online." "No," I said. "She is being seen online." Vanessa inhaled sharply. "That is cruel. What happened to Hazel was cruel. The video is evidence." There was a silence then, just long enough for me to hear the shape of our family changing. Vanessa lowered her voice. "You could have handled this privately. Mom made it public the moment she built a business out of pretending to love children." Vivian. "No, not this time." I ended the call before she could cry in a way that asked me to comfort her. For the rest of the afternoon, I did not post. I did not explain. I did not write a statement. I did not show Hazel's face. I did not turn my daughter into a counterbrand because my mother had turned family into content. I saved screenshots. I archived comments from verified accounts. I emailed the medical note reference number to myself. I kept records because records had become the only language that did not bend. Around 4, an email came from a name I recognized but had never expected to see in my inbox. Pastor Linda Foster. She asked if she could call. I stepped onto the back porch while Rachel stayed inside with Hazel. Pastor Linda's voice was older than I remembered, soft but tired. "Vivian, I am sorry to reach out this way. Did you see the video?" "Yes, and I am sorry I waited until there was a video." The cold moved through my sweater. I looked out at the bare maple trees behind the house. "What does that mean?" "It means your daughter is not the first person Eleanor made smaller, because someone did not fit the picture." Pastor Linda told me about Melissa Carter, a former church volunteer whose son had been quietly removed from a children's service project photo because he had sensory issues and would not wear the matching shirt. Eleanor had said the campaign needed visual unity. Melissa had complained. By the following month, she was no longer coordinating volunteers. People were afraid of her influence, Pastor Linda said. She brought donations, sponsors, attention. I told myself it was personality conflict. I should not have. My hand tightened around the phone. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because last night was not a mistake. It was a pattern that finally had a witness." After we hung up, Melissa Carter emailed me a 2-page letter. She did not ask for anything. She wrote that watching Hazel stand up from the rug made her remember her own son whispering, "Mom, did I mess up the picture?" I read that sentence 3 times, then saved the file in the folder I had made that morning. The next message came from Tessa Holloway. Tessa had been my mother's old friend, the woman who helped her build Grace and Hearth Living. Back when my mother had fewer than 2,000 followers and still posted blurry muffin pictures. They had called themselves Faith Sisters for years. Then in 2021, the tags stopped. My mother said Tessa had become jealous. I had believed that because belief was easier than curiosity. Tessa's message was short. I am sorry. I should have spoken sooner. Call me if you want the truth about why I left. I called. Tessa answered on the first ring. I wondered if you would, she said. What happened in 2021? She exhaled. Your mother wanted to use children from the church pantry program in a sponsored holiday campaign. Covenant had sent product. Blankets, mugs, serving boards. Eleanor wanted the children around the table for the photographs. Were there permission forms? For some, not all. One mother said no. Eleanor told me the child could be placed at the edge of the frame and cropped later if needed. I closed my eyes. That sounds like her. I told her ministry was not a casting call. She told me I was too soft for ministry business. The phrase made my stomach turn. Tessa's voice sharpened. Vivian, Grace and Hearth was never just about faith. It became a stage, then a store. Your daughter threatened the image because grief is messy, because Owen saw through her, and because Hazel could not be arranged into the version of family Eleanor wanted to sell. I did not answer. I could not. By evening, the video had crossed numbers I stopped understanding. Strangers were dissecting the room. My father's lowered eyes. Vanessa's silence. Eric's stillness. Rachel's movement toward the door. The question repeated everywhere, louder than any insult aimed at my mother. Where were the adults? At 7:14, Covenant Home Collective issued a short comment saying they were aware of the video and reviewing their partnership with Grace and Hearth Living. Everlight Devotionals followed with a statement saying, all scheduled content was paused, pending review. The podcast network removed the next episode of Grace Around the Table from the upcoming release schedule. At 8:23, Rachel's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked up at me. It is Margaret Reeves from Covenant. She wants to speak with you. I do not want to be interviewed. She says it is not for publicity. It is for documentation. I agreed to a call, but only without Hazel's involvement. Margaret Reeves sounded professional, controlled, and very awake for a woman whose workday should have ended hours earlier. Mrs. Mercer, I want to begin by saying, I am sorry for what happened to your daughter. Thank you. We are conducting an internal review. We have received over 4,000 customer emails and tags in the last 6 hours. We are also reviewing campaign materials provided by Mrs. Whitmore over the past 3 years. I sat straighter. What kind of materials? Images involving minors, newsletters, affiliate campaigns, sponsored family table features. We are checking consent documentation. The word consent moved through the room like a match being struck. I did not sign anything for Hazel. I understand, Margaret said. That is part of why I am calling. She did not promise consequences. She did not dramatize. She said their legal team would contact my mother. She said the partnership was being suspended under the moral conduct clause, pending review. She said Everlight had already requested copies of shared campaign archives. When I hung up, Rachel and I sat in silence. Then my phone buzzed again. A forwarded screenshot from Tessa. My mother had messaged her privately. The tone was apologetic at first. She wrote that things had been taken out of context, that Hazel had always been difficult after Owen's death, that grief made Vivian fragile, that the online mob did not understand family. Then came the sentence that ended any version of mercy I might have still been reaching for. Some children do not belong in the picture you are building. You know how that is. I read it once. Then again, Rachel whispered, Vivian. I forwarded the screenshot to Margaret Reeves. I saved it to the evidence folder. Then, for the first time all day, my mother called. I watched her name glow on the screen, Eleanor Whitmore. Mother. I did not answer. At 9:56, Nathan texted me. I should have said something years ago. I am sorry. At 10:11, Vanessa sent a long message about betrayal, loyalty, and family reputation. I did not open it. At 10:32, Harold called. My father never called late. He believed late calls meant death, fire, or shame. I answered on the fourth ring. For a moment, all I heard was his breathing. Then he said, "Vivian." His voice sounded older than it had the day before. "What do you want, Dad?" Another pause. "There are things I should have told you before Christmas." I looked toward my bedroom, where Hazel was finally asleep under the quilt, one hand resting where Owen used to sleep. And I understood then that this was no longer about a video. It was about years of silence, and the people who had mistaken silence for innocence. Chapter 5. The Only Family, Sheen and Seed. The next morning, I met my father at a small coffee shop, tucked between a bookstore and a pharmacy in Fairfield. The place smelled like roasted beans and old paper. People sat behind laptops. A couple argued quietly over a crossword puzzle. It was the kind of ordinary place where ordinary people came to talk about ordinary problems. Nothing about what waited at our table felt ordinary. Harold Whitmore was already there when I arrived. For the first time in my life, he looked old. Not retired, not tired. Old. His shoulders seemed smaller. His gray sweater hung loose around his frame. The man who had spent decades avoiding conflict looked like conflict had finally found him anyway. I sat across from him. Neither of us touched our coffee. For a long moment, he just stared at his hands, then he spoke. "I deserve this." I said nothing. I kept telling myself your mother meant well. The old sentence. The family sentence. The sentence that had protected Eleanor for years. Your mother means well. Your mother has a big heart. Your mother didn't mean it like that. Your mother is trying her best. I had heard versions of it my entire life. This time I did not rescue him from it. He swallowed hard. I knew about the photos. I felt my jaw tighten. "I know." His eyes lifted. "No, you don't know all of it." I stayed silent. Harold rubbed his palms together. "I saw her remove Hazel from the Christmas card draft." The words landed heavily between us. I asked, "Why? What did she say?" His mouth trembled. "She said the card looked cleaner." I closed my eyes. Not because I was surprised, because I was no longer surprised. That was worse, Harold continued. I knew when she changed the bio from 6 grandchildren to 5. I stared at him. "You knew?" He nodded. I asked her about it. "What did she say?" His voice dropped. "She said Hazel wasn't part of the brand anymore." The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm, too bright, too normal. While strangers ordered muffins and checked emails, my father was calmly describing the dismantling of a child. I knew about the pajamas, too. He looked away. The matching Christmas sets, the birthday posts, the missing photos, the newsletter. Each sentence felt like another brick added to a wall I had spent years walking into. Then came the one that mattered. I knew why. I froze, Harold's eyes filled. It was Owen. I thought I had prepared myself for that answer. I had not. He reminded Eleanor that she couldn't control everyone. Had not Harold wiped at his eyes. Owen challenged her. He questioned things. He wouldn't play along. He didn't care about appearances. I thought of Owen standing in our kitchen years ago. Your mother loves an audience more than she loves the truth, Harold continued. When Owen died, Hazel became the reminder. The words nearly broke me. My daughter had never done anything. She had simply looked too much like her father. The same eyes, the same quietness, the same refusal to perform. And my mother could not erase Owen. So she tried to erase the part of him that remained. Harold finally cried, not dramatically, not loudly. Just the exhausted tears of a man who had spent years pretending neutrality was innocence. I should have stopped her. Yes, I said. I should have said something. Yes, I should have protected Hazel. Yes, the tears continued. For the first time, I did not comfort him. That sounds cruel. Maybe it is. But I had spent too many years comforting adults while children absorbed the damage. Not this time. Eventually, Harold wiped his face. What happens now? I took a slow breath. Eleanor does not get access to Hazel. He nodded. Okay. If you want a relationship with Hazel, you do not defend Eleanor. Another nod. I understand. You don't explain her. No, you don't tell Hazel her grandmother loves her deep down. No, you don't tell her family is family no matter what. His eyes dropped. I won't. I believed him. For the first time in years, I actually believed him. When I left the coffee shop, I felt lighter. Not happy, not healed, but clearer. The next few weeks felt like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Covenant Home Collective terminated its partnership with Grace and Hearth Living. Everlight Devotionals ended my mother's contributor contract. The podcast network suspended Grace around the table indefinitely. The statement they released was professional and brief values misalignment. Pending review. Future programming decisions. Corporate language for we are done. The Women's Ministry Board at church quietly requested Eleanor step away from leadership. Former volunteers started speaking. Former friends started speaking. People I had never met emailed me stories that sounded disturbingly familiar. Not identical, but familiar. A child excluded, a family pushed aside, a person removed when they no longer fit the image. The pattern was suddenly visible everywhere. Nathan came to see me one Saturday afternoon. My older brother looked embarrassed before he even reached the front porch. I should have said something. I nodded. Yes, I was afraid of Mom. So was everyone. That was the problem. Rachel remained exactly who she had always been. The person who documented what everyone else ignored. The person who stepped outside into the cold. The person who refused to look away. One evening an email arrived from Tessa Holloway. Only one sentence: protecting a child is not cancel culture. I saved it. I never posted it. Not everything needed an audience. The most important moment happened months later. Long after the sponsorships ended. Long after the headlines disappeared. Long after strangers stopped arguing about my family online. I was cleaning the kitchen when I found Hazel's recipe journal tucked behind a stack of board games. The brown notebook, the Christmas gift that had never been opened. I sat down and carefully turned the pages. Grandma's favorite pie. Grandma's favorite soup. Grandma's favorite cookies. Things Grandma might like. Maybe Grandma will be proud of me. Maybe Grandma will smile. Maybe Grandma will put this in her kitchen. Every page was written in a child's careful handwriting. Every page was an attempt to earn something that should have been given freely. Love. Approval, belonging. I cried harder than I had cried over any sponsorship, any video, any public scandal. Because this was the real damage. Not the internet, not the contracts. A little girl believing she needed to become worthy of being loved. I was still wiping tears away when Hazel walked into the kitchen. She looked at the notebook, then at me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I opened my arms. She climbed into my lap, even though she was getting too big for it. I kissed the top of her head. You know something, kiddo? What? You never have to earn love. She was quiet. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Can we have our own Christmas next year? I smiled. A real smile, the kind that does not hurt. We already are. 1 year later, our kitchen table looked nothing like my mother's. The chairs did not match. The tablecloth had a stain on one corner. The cookies were slightly burned because Nathan forgot the timer. Rachel laughed too loudly. Pastor Linda brought pie. Melissa brought hot chocolate. No cameras. No sponsored content. No perfect centerpiece. No brand. Just people. Hazel sat in the middle of the table. Not at the edge. Not in another room. Not outside. Right in the center. Where she belonged. At one point she laughed so hard milk came out of her nose. Everyone laughed with her. No one shushed her. No one moved her. No one edited her out. For years, I thought saving my daughter meant keeping the family together. I was wrong. Sometimes saving a child means letting the illusion fall apart. Because a table is not defined by who sits at it. It is defined by who is welcomed there. And for the first time in a very long time, every chair in our home was filled by someone who chose love over appearances. If you've ever seen a child pushed out of family photos, left out of family traditions, or made to feel invisible by the very people who should have protected them, remember this. Silence does not protect children. It protects the people hurting them. Do you think I did the right thing by letting the evidence speak for itself? Or should family problems always stay inside the family? Let me know in the comments. And if stories about justice, family, and second chances matter to you, stay with us for the next one.